Check, check, check. No, cash. Let me turn that fan down a bit. Look, pay attention. Pay attention, pay attention. Hey, Kathy's here. I hope this mic ain't too loud. I had to redo the Blue Yeti microphone, so I don't know if I might have screwed up a setting. Sounds all right to me, but it never fails. It'll sound great to me, and then I do the playback, and I'm like, gee, I can almost hear it. Then the next day, I make a little tiny adjustment. It's like, holy shit. You know, Kathy, the big dummy, looked at that email, and then it hit me what the .kc is. Duh! I'm like, when I wrote it down, I'm like, what the hell's that KC? KC, oh. Then today, I'm looking at it going, oh, I know what the KC stands for. Kansas City. Oh. I end up, oh, jeez. I end up swapping out that hard drive, and I can't get the goddamn computer to boot up. I take the hard drive out, and I put it into a computer I can't use anymore. It boots right up. Hey, the Ronbo is here. 118 in temp. Oh, jeez. How long have you guys been triple digits? 2 months now? 2.5? Are you ever going to get out of triple digits? Well, congratulations. Good for you. A high B. What was the low A? 192? That's, I'll tell you what, out of 200, holy shit. Good for you. Congratulations. April. Holy yatchafuck. I do not understand how you people can put up with those temperatures. Because like with me, not having an air-conditioned vehicle, I'd be screwed. Yeah, Kathy. Proud of you there. God, some college kids couldn't even do that. Some high school kids couldn't even do that. Gee, the way that education system is today, I don't know why this thing is. Looks like it's tilted. Nah, don't screw with it. Yeah, Ron. Out there, I could understand why people have remote starts on their car. Start it up and cool it down, and then make the mad dash from the house. I gotta show you something goofy. I order the spark plugs for the RAV4 from an auto parts warehouse down, I think they're in Georgia. Every time I place an order, I get the spark plugs and I get a box of Sensodyne Pro Enamel toothpaste. And I've been ordered from this outfit for probably 5 years. Every time I get an order, I get a small tube of toothpaste. I don't understand what toothpaste has to do with auto parts. Every single time I get an order of spark plugs, I get Sensodyne Pro Enamel little bitty tube of toothpaste. I'm gonna email them and say, hey, I'm kind of really stocked up on toothpaste. Could you send deodorant? Yeah, I don't. 5 years ago, I came across it, and they're an auto parts warehouse. And the first time I got an order, I get this thing of toothpaste, and I was like, somebody dropped it in the box accidentally. Every 6 to 8 weeks, I have to replace the plugs in the RAV because the oil seals in the head they're slowly giving out, and the spark plugs fall out. So every 6 to 8 to 9 weeks, I have to replace the plugs. And every time I order, I get a box of toothpaste. And I'll tell you, if I was to go now, within the same distance for me, I've got Advanced Auto Parts one place and AutoZone the other direction. If I buy spark plugs from either Advanced or AutoZone, those 4 spark plugs, and I get NGK racing plugs, they're $37 to $39. I order them out of this warehouse down south. I get them for $14.95 and free shipping. The same identical spark plugs. It really amazes me that these auto parts places stay in business. That's like I needed a coil for the RAV. Advanced was $76 and AutoZone was $79. I get it from this warehouse $19.95 for the same Toyota coil. Now you would think with my vehicles being almost 30 years old, that both Advanced and AutoZone would lower the price. Nope. I very rarely go to them. The only time I go to them is if I need oil or filter, because if I'm going to do an oil change, they usually have buy 5 quarts of oil, get the filter for free. But to go in and buy parts, unless it's something I can't wait a couple of days for. Although I'll tell you what, I am totally getting disgusted with eBay. The communication from these eBay sellers sucks. Now, all right, some sellers are probably busy and they're getting a lot of emails, okay? Other sellers, I don't see them that busy. Try to get them to answer an email. I had one, I emailed him 4 times because I ordered an item. It was like the 19th of July. And it keeps showing awaiting shipping, awaiting shipping, awaiting shipping. I emailed them 4 times. When are you going to ship this thing? You know, luckily it wasn't something I needed right away. But not to respond to an email. So finally, the 5th time, I just put cancel the order, refund my money. Well, it's interesting. He read that email because he canceled the order and refunded my money. Now, if he didn't have the item, I don't know why he just didn't say, sorry, I don't have the item, I'm refunding your money. It's obvious with him issuing me a refund after the 5th email, he didn't have the item to ship. And just to let me hang. And I have discovered this more and more and more and more with eBay sellers. If you contact them, it's like, screw you, I got your money, you can sit and wait for me. I had an item I ordered. It was like the 8th or 9th of June. And around the probably 8th or 9th of July, I emailed them and said, hey, it's been a month. It still shows awaiting shipping. Where is my item? No response. So I gave him another week. No response. So I probably sent him 8 emails. Cancel, 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 cancel. Issue refund, you know. Finally, today, I got my refund. So, believe me, I sent some nasty emails to eBay telling them, you've got a lot of sellers out there that refuse to communicate. They ignore the shit out of you. And then, if you file a negative feedback, holy shit, you hear from them right away. Then they have the nerve to say, will you retract that negative response, that negative feedback? No, I won't retract it. It's amazing. After a month and a half, all of a sudden, I file a negative feedback. I hear from you. You know, if you're that big of a seller, then hire somebody to answer your emails. If you can't do it yourself. But see, what I've discovered with a lot of these U.S. sellers, they're just a front. They don't actually have the stock. They put an item up for sale. I buy it. They contact their warehouse in China and tell them, okay, ship the item. And then if they don't pay China, China ain't shipping the item. But they leave the buyer hang. And I've come across a lot of eBay sellers that are like that. They do not physically have the stock on hand. They're a front for a Chinese warehouse. So even if you see U.S. seller, that don't mean shit. A lot of times before I'll purchase an item, I will literally send a contact seller, do you physically have item in stock? And if I don't get a response, I look somewhere else. And I've noticed this is a lot, it's going on a lot more and a lot more and a lot more. They're nothing more than a shell organization. They don't have the stock on hand. And like I discovered with those AC DC converters, this guy has like 10 different eBay sales outlets. It's the one person. He opens an account, then he opens another account and another account and another account with a different seller name. And it's one guy with 10 sites selling the same fucking item, and they're always a couple of cents cheaper. This one will be $11.49, this one will be $11.47, this one will be $11.42. I remember back in the day on eBay, the only way you could buy something is you had to bid. There was no such thing as the way it is today. It was either bid or buy it now. Now, very rarely do you see something where you have to place a bid. And I go back that far on eBay, believe me. I think I've been 25 years with eBay, maybe closer to 30. eBay used to be an auction. I can remember many a night sitting there waiting till like the last minute, and then I'd place a bid. And if somebody was sleeping at the switch, they couldn't outbid me. I remember many a nights. Bidding would end like at 2 a.m. And here I am, 1:59 and 30 seconds. And then I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to bid $5.03 more. And if nobody was paying attention, they couldn't bid against you. And I learned you always bid an odd amount. Like I would bid $18.47. I never bid like $18, $19, $20. No, I always bid oddball amounts. It was actually fun back in the day when you were bidding. Of course, there were many a nights I'd be up at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And 90% of the time I would win, and the other 10% I'd lose. But now eBay is all, it's like a big giant Walmart or Costco, you know. Here's the item, here's the price, buy it. No Linda tonight. No, I got not seen no Linda. She must be out feeding. Feeding the babies. I'm hooked on another British murder program. How I Caught the Killer. And then there's also another one, Killer in My Family. But boy, I'll tell you what. I would love to live in some of them little villages. Oh my God. You know, they're nestled in like the middle of nowhere, and it's just all beautiful countryside, and most of the villages have 2,000 residents or fewer, so of course everybody knows everybody. But to live in a village like that, I would love it. Have the little, local mom and pop bakery and the little mom and pop butcher and the beautiful old architecture, houses. And I would love to live over there. I really would. Of course, I don't think I could master driving on the wrong side of the road at this age. But like 90% of the vehicles over there are still manual transmissions. They love their manual transmissions over there. Over here, it's getting harder and harder and harder to find any. And the sad thing, like the brand new Corvettes, when they what is it, the new one, C8, they're all automatics. They said, oh, well, with the mid-engine, it was too hard to engineer the shift linkage. Well, Lamborghini does it, Ferrari does it, Maserati does it. They ruined the new Corvette. God, I remember when they finally put, a 6-speed in the Corvette. I think the last one for a manual transmission, I think is the C7. I think the new one is the C8. God, I remember for years you couldn't get a Corvette with an automatic because they were sports cars. Now everybody's so goddamn lazy. Oh, I'm not going to learn how to use a clutch. That was the best thing my father ever taught me. The only thing I can thank him for. Teaching me how to drive a manual. Although, believe me, I paid for it. Holy shit. Slip a clutch. Oh! Yeah, my right ear was larger than my left ear. And I've had manuals ever since. I won't screw an automatic. I'm looking possibly at another car right now. And it's a manual. Matter of fact, the guy that's selling it said, gee, I've only had 2 people look at it. You're number 3. The other 2 people I haven't heard from. And I was like, well, that's all I drive, man. I'll be driving a manual transmission until they tell me I can't drive them anymore. I'm still looking for a 2010 Ford F-150 because that was the last year that they put a manual transmission in an F-150. 2010. And they're scarce. I found one a couple weeks ago, but it needed a clutch. I was like, it figures. Hard to believe. 15 years ago was the last manual transmission in an F-150. And the sad thing is, even all of your big trucking fleets had to switch over to automatics. because they couldn't hire drivers. Like UPS, all their trucks are automatic now. Back in the day, they didn't have no goddamn automatics. Matter of fact, my UPS man, he's a couple years from retirement. He was begging, please, don't get rid of my truck. But unfortunately, it got pulled from service. And he hates that automatic that he's driving now. Oh, God, does he hate it. Although yesterday, I got a good look at one of the. I like them, they're kind of neat looking. The electric vans for Amazon. Because they look like giant bugs coming down the road with the round daytime driving lights. Because I asked the girl that was driving it, I said, how many miles do you get on a charge? And she says, I can run my whole route, I can come back and load up. I can't remember the term she used. Sometimes if somebody can't finish their route, they'll pull some of the bags off. Not emergencies. I can't remember what she called them. And she said, by the time I go back to the depot, running like 12 hours a day, I'm still at 80% voltage. So those things must have some fantastic batteries in them. But it's strange, you don't hear them. She got in and she put it in drive and no motor noise, nothing. Just humming. And then, like I mentioned, on the way to my, Parma Hospital for Metro, there's a Rivian dealership opening up. I love those Rivians because they got that big oval headlight. They are so neat. But being totally electric, not for Grumpy. No, thank you. I was reading an article where old Fisker went bankrupt again. He tried to make a comeback. What the hell did he call it? The Ocean. The Fisker Ocean. Oh, all those electric vehicles are so goddamn expensive. Hey, Mrs. M, 120, holy shit. Ron's a little cooler. He's at 118. Jesus. I hope you're staying cool in the house. Well, thanks for staying there, popping in. Hopefully you'll be feeling better soon. Man, that kind of heat can dehydrate you in a heartbeat. Jesus. Like I say, I give you guys a lot of credit for living out there. I know somebody has to live out there. I don't understand how the pioneers survived. Oh, that Nissan Leaf is, talk about an ugly looking car. Jesus. Although the Toyota Prius isn't a gorgeous car either. Yeah, Mrs. M, stay cool. Hope you get better. Hey, look who's here. Linda finally got done feeding the babies. I discovered an ice cream at Mark's. It's called Homemade. And I'll tell you what, this is the best goddamn ice cream I have ever tasted. Not to mention it's mint chocolate chip. It tastes like the ice cream that we would make when there would be a barbecue out at my aunt and uncle's farm. And she had a big, and I mean a big churn. It was like an industrial. And all the kids would take turns cranking that churn. And when it was done, oh, that was the best ice cream on earth. And this ice cream at Mark's, this homemade, oh my, it tastes like fresh churned. Oh, it's delicious. And big chunks of chocolate. Oh, God. And it's shaved. You know, some chocolate chip ice creams, they put chunks in. This is shaved, and it is delicious. I remember the other night Ron made a comment that he was cooking something he had never made before. I think it was flaming fillet of Mongolian yak. Oh, did you have a chance to imbibe in fresh churned ice cream? Oh, this churn my aunt had was huge. And we all would take turns cranking that churn, and every now and then she would check it. She'd go, okay, ice cream's done. And it was, oh, it was delicious. Well, this ice cream, I'm going to have to read the label to find out what dairy actually makes it. But the name of it is Homemade, and it tastes homemade. So is that what you made, Ron? flaming fillet of Mongolian yak. Yeah, we used to look forward to the cookouts at Uncle Joe and Aunt Daisy's farm because we knew after dinner we were getting ice cream. And usually it was around strawberry harvest time. And it was the best strawberry ice cream. Oh my God. But if we were going to get a bowl of ice cream, we all had to crank the old churn. And like I say, that thing had like a 5-gallon bucket. I think that's about how much ice cream it made. The churn was huge. And it was a bitch to crank. But it's strange how you're cranking that barrel inside of a barrel, and it's ice and rock salt. Because she'd put the ice in, sprinkle the rock salt, and we would start cranking. And I guarantee there wasn't any ice cream left at the end of the night. But that fresh churn, and like I say, this homemade brand, the first time I tasted it, it was like, oh God, this tastes like the ice cream that we used to make out on the farm. Matter of fact, a while back I was on Amazon, and they make electric churns. I was tempted to buy one, and I was like, too much bother. I'll just go buy my ice cream. Yeah, Linda, the good old days. 'Cause I remember my uncle had this big, oh God, I can't remember how big that spit was. And he would put like a couple of loins on it, and he rigged up an electric motor to turn it over the fire. And all he had was a couple of A-frames, and he set that spit in there, and there would be a bunch of chickens on the end, and then he'd have a beef loin, and then he'd have a pork loin, and he'd turn the motor on, and it would slowly turn that. And every now and then he'd throw some more logs under it. That was a barbecue. Because when he'd have a barbecue, there would probably be, God, 40, 50 people. Because he invited everybody. And he had he had like a bunch of sawhorses, and we ate off of doors. It wasn't a table. It was an old door. He'd have them stacked in the barn, and then everybody'd have to start assembling things. Put a door down. And everybody had to bring a lawn chair so that you had somewhere to sit. Then every now and then he'd fire up the tractor and hook the hay wagon to it and take us out around his 60 acres, go for a hayride. That was that was fun. The big family reunion cookouts. Because I can remember while the barbecue was cooking, the women would be making like a fucking 50-pound vat of potato salad and 50-pound vat of macaroni salad. But everything was all done over an open fire. He had, it was a tripod with a hook, and he had big kettles. I don't know where he got them. He got them out of a commercial kitchen somewhere. He'd hang the pot. They'd fill it with sliced potatoes. He'd start a fire underneath it, or the boiling water for the macaroni. He'd dump in about 10 pounds of macaroni and stir it with a nice clean log. And he used to go get pick-a-pop. He'd drive into town somewhere and they had pick-a-pop. And he'd get several cases of pick-a-pop. And take one of the old watering troughs and fill it with ice and stick all the bottles of pick-a-pop in, and then cover it with wet canvas to keep the ice from melting. And he always had a keg of beer for the adults. He would do 2, 3 barbecues during the summer. Invite, like I say, everybody. And then, as the aunts and uncles started getting too old and passing away, there went the big cookouts. Never had them like that anymore. Those were good times. Unfortunately, times we can never get back. But some great memories. Now nobody has. The younger generation don't want to be bothered. You know, I I I probably wouldn't know any of my nieces and nephews. Nobody stays in touch, you know. After the aunts and uncles passed on, my generation of, cousins, they did it for a little bit and then they quit. And matter of fact, I don't think any of them live close anymore. And they don't. As a matter of fact, through Faceplant, I find out, what's going on sometimes with the family, and none of them have cookouts anymore. Nobody gets together. By the time I find out somebody in the family died, it's like 6, 7 months later. Nobody stays in touch. Not like when we were growing up. But good memories of the way things used to be back when I was young. It's the same thing, Thanksgiving, Christmas. I remember growing up, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, everybody, family got together, had a big dinner. Not anymore. Yeah, basically when Uncle Joe had a stroke and he really couldn't do the cookouts anymore, and that's when everything kind of like fell apart because none of the other aunts and uncles seemed to want to be bothered. And then the family gatherings got smaller and smaller, and then they didn't even exist. I remember, like, Thanksgiving, going to my grandparents, and there'd be a big spread, stuff, matter of fact, I'm trying to think. My grandmother's, one of her brothers lived a couple blocks away, and one of her sisters lived like in the next city over. And Thanksgiving, everybody get together, Uncle Frank and, God, I can't remember Uncle Frank's wife. But, it was a big family thing. But nobody wanted to be bothered. After Uncle Joe had his stroke, nobody even wanted to pitch in and say, okay, Joe, we'll all come out and we'll throw the party. Nobody even would offer. So all the big cookouts just ended. Which was sad because, Uncle Joe's brothers and sisters, you would have thought, okay, we'll keep the tradition going. Nope. Once he had his stroke, that ended all the cookouts. Which I'm sure he felt bad about, thinking, gee, I threw these cookouts all these years and my own brothers and sisters don't want to be bothered. A real thank you to Uncle Joe and Aunt Daisy, It goes to show you how fickle family can be. Oh, me take over? Oh, no, it's too much work. And for a gathering of 50, 60 people, the only place you could do it was Uncle Joe's farm. Because nobody else in the family really had that kind of land. But good memories, though. Of course, you try to tell kids, what it was like back growing up, and they're like, oh, you're telling stories. No, that's the way it was. Yeah, I went up to the store earlier and they had these rental electric scooters. I don't know where you rent them at, unless they like deliver one to you. But I'm noticing like they're like all over the neighborhood. Evidently, when they run out of voltage or you get to your destination, you just leave it. And there were a couple on the tree lawns up the street, and then there was one in the parking lot at the my little mom and pop store. They're just littered all over the neighborhood. And once evidently once you get to your destination, they turn off. So unless you have an app on your phone or something, but the kids get to where they're going and they just leave them. And I don't know if this company drives around and picks them up. But where evidently you must have to have an app. But where you get these scooters, like I say, do they bring it out and drop it off for you and then you ride it around until you're out of voltage? But yeah, I'm driving down the street and they're just abandoned on people's tree lawns. Yeah, like Ego or something. E something. I think an Ego maybe. They're just little electric stand-on scooters. But I noticed lately there's more and more of them just abandoned. I don't know if they come and pick them up. But there's like 5 of them right around the area here. Matter of fact, right down the street from me, there's one laying on the neighbor's front lawn. He said it's been there a couple days. I didn't notice it, but... And there's no phone numbers or anything on them because he wanted it off his damn lawn. Well, Ron, not around here. It's evidently you just ride it until the ride is done and then you just dump it. Yeah, I think it's still there. I think I noticed it when I went outside before. I think it's still laying on his tree lawn. Because I asked him, I says, is there a phone number on it? He said no. Because he went to move it and it started beeping. Like a theft alarm or something. E. He put it back down. I'll have to take a look after the show and see if it's still laying there. Yeah, somebody just dumped it. He said he come out to go to work the other day and it was just laying there. But they're like Ego or Easy Go or something like that. I think it's Ego. Because they're like dark gray and the Ego is in bright green. They're actually kind of a pain in the ass. Just ride along. I'm out of voltage. Dump it. I don't know whether they charge by the hour or... I've never seen anybody riding one. I've just seen them abandoned. I guess I'll have to gargle it. But you know, driving around the area, I don't see like a scooter depot where like you would pick them up. I don't know how you get them, but they're just dumped. And like I say, when he went to pick the thing up to move it, it started beeping. Eek, 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 eek. He put it back down. Then it stopped beeping. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was still there. I went the other way when I went to the store, so I didn't really pay attention, but it was laying there for like 2 days at least. I'm sure they probably have GPS trackers on them so you can't steal them. I mean, they look kind of neat. I'd be tempted to ride one. Just step on it and twist the handlebar. I notice it's got a little foot brake, so Grumpy could ride it. I'd probably look like an idiot. Be my luck somebody pull out in front of me. Pfft, there'd be Grumpy. Scooter embedded into the side of a car. Speaking of, earlier I watched, oh God, I must have watched 3 hours worth of dash cams. And it's amazing how people don't pay attention to their driving. Watching some of these dash cams like on the freeway, traffic slowing down and here comes somebody 90 miles an hour and slams into somebody. Matter of fact, I was watching a case with Judge Simpson, and this guy was driving along and screwing around with his phone, and he T-boned a guy in an intersection and killed him. And the amazing thing was when the guy's parents got up and they both said they forgave him, and they told Judge Simpson, don't give him a lot of jail time. He's suffered enough. I was like, wow, now that's a set of parents. Talk about forgiving people. Yeah, they both got right up and said, matter of fact, the woman said, don't give him more than 90 days. And that's what Judge Simpson did. He gave him 90 days in jail. Well, he gave him 360. Had to serve 90. He suspended the rest and put him on 4 years probation. And then I don't know how long his driver's license got suspended for. But I couldn't believe when his parents got up and said, we forgive him. I was like, wow. I don't know if I showed you guys this or not. You know, most backup cameras, they come with these little monitors. They're about 4 inches. I like a little bigger monitor. So on eBay, I bought this monitor. It's got a nice mounting bracket. I was like, this will make a great backup camera. Well, this thing has a built-in camera. and you see yourself. There's no way of hooking an external camera to turn this into a backup monitor. It has a built-in camera right here, and you see yourself. What a worthless piece of shit that I bought, and of course you can't return it. Yeah, I plugged it in, and I'm seeing myself. And then I started to take it apart. There's no way of plugging an external camera in. So there goes my backup monitor. Worthless. I even wrote the company that manufactures it. They were like, nope, you can't hook an external to it. Sorry. What a worthless piece of crap. Because I was thinking maybe I could take the wires off the internal camera and solder them to an external for a backup camera. No. It's a printed circuit board. There's no wires on it. Luckily, I didn't pay that. That's probably why he was selling them so cheap. Because I like a little bigger monitor than a stinking little 4-incher. I want to see what's behind me. I guess in the Passat, I'll have to make it look like a Tesla. Put a tablet in there. Because I've been looking on eBay for 7-inch monitors. And you can find them, but you have to buy the whole big kit. I don't want the whole kit. I'm not spending a couple $100. I've got backup cameras. I just needed a monitor to hook it to. Then I buy that thing. Worthless. It's the stupidest thing. Although it's when it boots up, it says Walmart. So evidently, and I haven't been in Walmart, there must be like you walk past a certain area and you look and you see yourself on TV on a monitor. Oh boy. Probably why he sold them so cheap. But yeah, it's got a built-in camera. And you can't hook an external camera to it. Piss me off. Because with the bracket, it would have bolted to the dash real nice. Then when I put it in reverse, I could have had a big nope. I think the chat's frozen. I haven't seen the chat move in a while. Either that or nobody's chatting. Yeah, I come out this morning. I saw Timmy leaving for work. He said he's starting to be breathing a lot better, but he's still got that heart monitor on. I hope he isn't developing heart problems like his father had. Jeez. But he drove by, waved. With his spotless, clean Chevy Trailblazer. He washes that thing every single day. Well, that's what I figured, Ron. Nobody's saying nothing. Missing people? You mean like murder mystery kind of missing? People that just vanished without a trace? Yeah, Kathy, that would be scary. You know, it is amazing how many people disappear every year without a trace. Holy shit, really? Matter of fact, I read an article a couple weeks ago. They said in England, somebody goes missing every 30 seconds. Now, some get found, but some never. Oh, that definitely sounds like a homicide to me, Kathy. Sounds like something that I would be watching on Killer in My Village. Over in England, they seem to like to dismember people. I have watched more murder cases with dismembered bodies. Oh, yeah, Kathy, I told you I watched. Uh, Matter of fact, it was down Virginia, Georgia, somewhere in that area where a guy was claiming that he was an Uber, and he would pull up on a street corner like this girl said, "Are you my Uber?" And he said yes, and she got in, and next thing you know, he went the opposite way, and they ended up finding her dead the next day. He was acting like an Uber to pick up women, and then he was killing them. Along with his sister. Oh, Jesus. Nothing like keeping murder in the family. See, That's what I like about Lyft. Lyft has those signs in the window that light up that say Lyft. Although I'm sure there's some way to get your hands on them. But Uber, you don't know. Like I say, this guy was just pulling up on the. If a girl be standing on a street corner, he'd pull up, put the window down. You waiting for your an Uber? She was like, yeah. He'd okay, get in. Matter of fact, he killed 2 or 3 before they finally caught him. Not to mention, look how many Uber drivers have literally killed women. Not like the days of the old yellow cab, A yellow cab pulled up, you knew it was a yellow cab because it was yellow and it said yellow cab on it. Now, today, with people using their own cars, you have no idea if it's a real Uber or Lyft. Well, Lyft, they have that little neon sign. Yeah, they're right, Linda. Like magnetic signs on the side of the vehicle, and when you get in, it should be like a cab driver. His picture's there, his license, his name. If I had a fairly decent car, I could be an Uber driver. Perfect, like this. They should have all types of ID. Okay, quit shaking. There should be all kinds of items like this in a vehicle with ID cards and that for Uber and Lyft, and they don't have nothing like that. Let me hang it over here. There. You get in a taxi cab. The license is usually about this big. But an Uber is just somebody driving their family car. Not to mention, I don't know if Uber and Lyft do background checks or anything like that. Probably not. They did background checks, they'd find out if some of these guys were criminals, I wouldn't trust them. No. Luckily, we still have some real taxi cab companies around. Matter of fact, there's a guy up the street, him and his wife, Ace Cab. Is it Ace? Americab. And they're identified down the side. It says Americab. It's got the number on it. Because him and his wife, they do a lot of pickups at the airport. And like he said, they had to go through a background check. But I don't know if Uber or Lyft do background checks. They probably just check. Okay, you got a newer car, you got a driver's license, you got insurance. Okay, you're a driver. And everything operates off cell phones. Taxi cabs had meters. The meter was right up on the dash. If I needed to go somewhere, I'd call a cab. Luckily, we still actually have some taxi services that exist. God, I remember back in the day in Cleveland, you had Yellow Cab and Zone. Yellow Cab were all yellow, and Zone cabs were green and white. And they were all checkers. Every taxi cab company had checker marathons. Then poor Checker went bankrupt. But that's what taxi cab companies bought. Checkers. Although a lot of them buy old police cars now. But if you want to be an Uber driver, what do they require? I know the car has to be a certain year, but what kind of checks do they do? Evidently, they must not do really in-depth background checks if some of these goddamn criminals can become an Uber driver and then off somebody. Who was the service? God, it's been years. They had a mustache on the front of the car. They had a big mustache. You hooked it to the grill of your car. It had a big fucking mustache. Uber does all that. Background fingerprints, car insurance. But I remember, this years back, it was like an Uber or a Lyft or something, and the way you could identify it was the car had a big fucking mustache on the front of it. Was the stupidest thing on earth, but you definitely knew who your ride service was when they pulled up with a mustache. Does anybody remember that, or am I losing my mind? I remember it was on the news when they came to this area. I can't remember who it was. But you identified the car by a big fucking stuffed mustache that you affixed to the grill of your car. Because it was on all the TV stations. 358, 19, 43. They showed it. The car pulled up and there was a big fucking mustache that they zip tied to the grill. And I can't remember what car service it was. Because I remember every one of the news stations, they would be standing out in front of the station, and the car would pull up and the camera would be, and here's a car with a big fucking mustache. It was Lyft. That mustache thing didn't last too long. Yeah, a pink mustache, but it was zip tied to the front, the grill of the car. That's how you knew your car service was arriving. You looked for the fucking pink mustache coming down the street. I wonder how long the mustaches lasted. Yeah, it's years back. Gotta be 10 years easy. Because I remember every TV station, it was on the news. Because I remember watching Channel 8 and it pulled up in front of the Channel 8 building, and then watched Channel 5 and it pulled up in front of, and the cameraman was out there, and here comes a car with a big fucking pink mustache on it. It was a gimmick. It didn't last long. Yeah. They need identification. Magnetic signs, like a taxi sign on the roof that would say Uber or Lyft, that, God, you got power ports all over the cars to plug in, so people knew it was a real Uber or Lyft. And every car should be assigned a number. That way, if people didn't remember a license number, they'd say, oh, there was a decal on the car that said car number 7342 or something. They need to have better identification. Rather than somebody just pulling up and going, I'm your Lyft, I'm your Uber. Yeah, well, now the sign for Lyft is, God, it's a little thing. I saw one the other day. It just happened to be at night. He had it on the dash. And it wasn't too much bigger than that. It just said Lyft. It was neon blue. Yeah, Kathy, but everything runs off of cell phones. They should have an actual, meter mounted in the car. But those are the real Lyft and Uber. But there's for Uber, there's no identification on them. That's how this guy, I think he was down in Georgia. He was picking up college girls because, they'd be standing on a street corner and he'd pull up you. Are you waiting for an Uber? Yes. Okay, get in. And they would get in because they were probably half crank coming from a bar, so they need to be identified like taxi cabs. Uh-oh. This ain't good. Didn't I light it? I think I'm out of fluid. That's not good. I don't have any butane. Yeah, Kathy, but most of these goddamn cars all look alike today. A Hyundai SUV looks like a Honda, looks like a Toyota. And 9 times out of 10, if it's closing time around the bars, the riders are cranked. They're not paying attention. Oh, yeah, these driverless vehicles are scary. Although there was one, it was in the news not too long ago. This Uber driver had gotten held up. So she paid to have cameras put in her car with a DVR in the trunk. And there was a camera that was mounted like over her mirror. And then there were 2 cameras in the back seat. She had 3 cameras. And the DVR was in the trunk, so if somebody ripped the camera out, it was still saved on a hard drive in the trunk. But not everybody goes to that expense either. Because, she said it was like her last trip. And it showed these 2 teenage kids, both pulling out guns. One put it right at her neck. She had to hand over her money and her cell phone. Well, there's only certain areas that have the driverless. But I wouldn't trust them goddamn things. I don't care how many hundreds of thousands of miles of testing. I don't think so. I'm not getting in a car that don't have a driver. That's kind of scary when you come down to it. I remember seeing every now and then on the news, they show them doing the testing and somebody'd be sitting in the front seat behind the steering wheel, but they wouldn't touch nothing unless they had to do an evasive maneuver. And then there were so many million miles, and then they went, okay, whatever city they were in gave them a permit, said, all right, I wouldn't be getting in nothing that didn't have a driver behind the wheel. But that's what it's coming down to. These cars that, Ford, Chevy, they all have this shit now. You take your hands off, but every now and then you got to touch the wheel or something, but software is not 100% perfect. I don't know if Tesla has ever got their approval. To me, that's just looking for trouble. If you're that goddamn tired or that too lazy to put your hands on the steering wheel, don't drive. I don't care where I would be going. I am not going to go, oh, okay, I don't have to steer the car. Nope. Like I say, if you're that tired or that fucking lazy, then you don't deserve to be in the car. Instead of this hands-free driving bullshit, let's mount cameras in the car. Where, if you're starting to nod off, the car puts the brakes on and stops. Or if you're that goddamn drunk, the car shouldn't start. I can't remember if it was Ford or GM that wanted to put a device in the steering wheel where if you were intoxicated, the car wouldn't start. And you get these groups of people that are like, oh, that's an invasion of our privacy. No, if you're intoxicated, you shouldn't be behind the goddamn wheel. Yeah, the car shouldn't start. I'm all for that. There should be a sensor in the steering wheel where if you come out of a goddamn bar and you get in your car shouldn't start, period. It would eliminate a lot of accidents and a lot of deaths on the road. God, I was watching, what judge was it this morning? One of the judges down in Texas watching arraignments. And like every other goddamn case was a DUI. I'm trying to think what judge it was. It wasn't Fleischer. Maybe Judge West. I get Judge West and Judge Morgan confused. But yeah, they were doing arrangements, and like every other one was a DUI, a DUI, a DUI. But I'm all for a sensor built into the steering wheel where you come out and you're inebriated. No matter what you do, the car don't start. That would eliminate a lot of problems. Because if you wanted to get home, you would be forced to call an Uber or a Lyft. Because your car ain't going to start until you're sober. But you get all these organizations going, oh, you're infringing on our rights. I know MAD was behind it 100%. I think it was Ford. I'm not sure. Ford was considering doing it. You know, if they can do all kinds of software for self-driving cars so you can take your hands off the steering wheel, then they should put a sensor in the steering wheel to prevent a car from starting if you're intoxicated. Plain and simple. You know, I could guarantee these people that are against it, if they got hit by somebody, they'd be like, oh my God, that car should have had a sensor in it. Well, it's like locking the barn after the horse runs away. And same thing, they need to do more stricter enforcement on people on their cell phones. I told you about the woman, and this is it's 5-6 years ago. I had to go downtown in the morning. I get on the freeway, and here's a woman. She's got a newspaper over the steering wheel, talking on her cell phone. She had her finger in the steering wheel, and she's driving down the freeway. I was like, holy shit, I'm getting away from this one. You know, all these cars, you can pair your cell phone with your car. Why do you have to hold your cell phone up to your head? I remember my kid's Impala. As soon as he got in, the car immediately paired with his cell phone. And if the cell phone rang, he just hit a thing on the steering wheel to answer. There's no need to be holding your goddamn cell phone up to your head. I mean, all these cars on the road today have that automatic pairing. Like I say, with his, as soon as he got in and started the car, it automatically. He didn't even have to do nothing. What does it take? A couple of seconds to set it up, and then it's on forever? Too much distracted driving. And I mean, everywhere I go, I see people on their goddamn cell phones. It's bad enough you're in the grocery store and people can't stop talking on their phone. And then they always have to have it on speaker, full volume. And they're so ignorant they can't even stop their phone call at the cash register. Oh, God. I would like to grab people's cell phones and throw them across the room. Get off the phone! Of course, that's why they call me the grumpy old man. Then it's just... First of all, it's irritating as hell. Second of all, it's ignorant. Yep, last of the coffee. Well, what time is it? Oh, it's about that time. I have a couple of burgers with my name on them. It's pretty good eating meat. I do miss my salad, but meat is good. Oh, yeah, Kathy, you know, I mean, I could see walking through the store, but when you get up to the cash register, come on, get off the phone. Fumbling around with your phone trying to get your credit card out or your cash. Whoever you're on the phone would say, hey, I'll call you back in 10 minutes when I get in the car. No. All right, I think it's music time. Oh, we know where, right here, WDWL TV. Everybody, it's been another fun night. Thanks for everybody showing up. We had a good time. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. And we will meet again right here tomorrow night. Take care. See ya. I gotta replace this mouse. Take two. See ya.